Thank you. Thank you for the comment. You're good, thank you. Welcome everyone to the City Council regular meeting for the City of Evans, February 2nd. I'm Brian Rudy, the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
Here.
Councilmember Spear?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Present.
Councilmember Neal?
Present.
Councilmember Castle? Councilmember Mortensen?
Here.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No changes.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Next item is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item that is not on the agenda this evening? Please step up to the podium and state your name and address, and welcome and thank you for being here.
My name's Tony Hayes. I live at 3414 Trinidad Street. The city's come to me through code enforcement, and basically a lot of nuisance things I need to comply with, and those things I'm working real hard at getting cleaned up and getting put away. My main concern to be here, and just to bring to your attention, is that my family's been trucking out of there for 60 years. Miss Spear, she knows, she knew my family, and I'm a little concerned about having to move off the place I was born and raised on, or grew up on, and the place that my dad was born on and trucked out of for all these years. And I'm really hoping we can come to an amicable agreement that we can both live with. And we built a shop there to maintain our trucks, and I have one truck. I have 5 trailers. That's all I want there. I want to be able to come and go and park my truck there. I was told if I could park the truck on the street and leave the trailer somewhere else. I got 2 acres. Why would I want to put my truck on the street in danger? Over the years, there's been cars coming out of the trailer park or going to the trailer park drunk, doing 90 miles an hour, landing in our front yard. I'd really like to be able to keep operating out of there. And that's, I'm here to tell you that probably in the next 6 to 8 months, I want to have, after 60 years of collections, my dad never threw anything away. I'm going through cleaning up. There was a big pile of manure. I got it gone. There was 28 loads there. My dad never threw a tire away. I'm going through and breaking those down, getting them hauled off. He kept trailer axles. I'm working on getting all that cleaned up, all the scrap iron hauled off. I've got a few old trucks that for like the antique truck shows and stuff like that I'd like to restore. I'm working on getting those placed in an area where they're not a nuisance or visible to the public, and that I want to comply. And if I could have, I got to work plus do this. I'm by myself. I really can't afford to pay anybody to help me. My son comes when he's not working and helps me. And I'm hoping we can come to an agreement where I can stay there and continue to live where I've always lived and operate. I don't irritate my neighbors. I don't go out and rev my engine up at 5 o'clock in the morning, wake everybody up, I hope nobody's complained anyway. I haven't heard anything. I figure about 6 to 8 months I should be able to be completely in compliance with everything, except not having a place to park my truck and my trailers. I'd just really like to stay there. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being here tonight. Obviously, we can't choose anything tonight, but thanks for being here, and we'll be working with staff on that item. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item that is not on the agenda this evening? Or anyone, no one virtual? Next item on the agenda is consent agenda. Item 1, approval of the January 19th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. Consideration of ordinance number 742-21 to amend the section 18.04.060 and section 18.03.010 of the City of Evans Municipal Code to clarify the intent of setback measurements for RV parks. And item 3, consideration of ordinance number 719-20, amending the land use code, section 18.06.070, to include standards for the small cell wireless facilities and to clarify sections of the telecommunications guidelines, second reading.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, new business. Liquor license renewal hearing, El Tropicana Sports Bar and Grill, and we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. It might take us a moment for the various parties to organize, but for this item, I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant City Attorney, Drew Lyman, and ask him to lead the staff presentation.
Thank you, Jim.
Might invite El Tropicana.
Yes, take the stand. If you guys need a minute or two to get all your papers organized and whatnot, please take that time. I can't do it. Go ahead whenever
Good
you're ready.
evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. This is a proceeding where the City Council, under Chapter 5.08 of the Evans Municipal Code, operates as the liquor licensing authority. Thank you. If I may, I'll sit down here.
Please.
In this proceeding, the City Council is acting in its capacity as the Evans Liquor Licensing Authority under Chapter 5.08 of the Evans Municipal Code. Ordinarily, the Liquor Licensing Authority addresses two types of questions. One is the renewal of new liquor license for applications of new liquor license applicants, and also determining whether or not to renew an existing license. Existing licensees who filed for renewal applications file the renewal application, and that application is reviewed by an administrative review team, which is comprised of the city attorney's office, the police department, the fire district, the city clerk, and the building department. Tonight we have the building department represented by Heather Yatrada and Rocco DeLuca, and the police department by Luis Garcia, and Chief of Police Rick Brandt is here as well. So we will present evidence of the concerns that exist as to the liquor license belonging to El Tropicana Incorporated. The concerns generally arise under three types of categories. One is unreasonable noise. There have been unreasonable noise violations, and you'll see evidence of that. Building code violations, and public safety or law enforcement concerns that directly implicate the liquor code and the liquor rules. It's important to note in considering this evidence that a liquor license is a privilege and not a right in the state of Colorado. So to determine whether or not to renew a liquor license, the question is whether the evidence supports a finding that the liquor laws, which are comprised of the liquor code, which is the state law on liquor licensees, or the liquor rules, have been violated, or are Evans Municipal implementing ordinances in Chapter 5.08 of the Municipal Code, and the liquor application itself, where the applicant has committed to abide by those rules and regulations. Representing the El Tropicana tonight and present here is Mr. Tom Grant. He's their attorney. The owners of the El Tropicana, Mr. Victor Pon and Jose Bocanegra, are primarily Spanish-speaking, so we have a certified interpreter here to ensure that they fully understand the proceeding. And the issue to be determined by the Liquor Licensing Authority, which again is the City Council acting as the Liquor Licensing Authority, is does the evidence support a finding that the liquor laws have been violated? And if so, does that evidence support renewing the liquor license belonging to the El Tropicana? And so with that, we'll begin the presentation of evidence. And again, as I stated, it'll go through the three categories that are related: unreasonable noise, the building code violations, and the law enforcement concerns. So we'll start with the PowerPoint presentation. And by the way, I have materials which I'll put on my mask and approach and hand out. Okay. These are the supporting materials for what is in the presentation. So in part of the presentation, for example, we include a little portion of the lease. And then you have the entire application in here and in reports and other items. So thank you for passing those out. Thank you, John. So the El Tropicana is located at 3520 11th Avenue. Here's a shot of the property so that you know where it is located. In license renewal, the licensing authority, that's, as I stated, the city council may refuse to renew a license for good cause, subject to judicial review. Good cause requires competent evidence that establishes that one or more violations of the Colorado liquor code or liquor rules. And the concerns that the staff has is that after expressly agreeing not to violate the local noise ordinance or operate as an entertainment facility, the El Tropicana Sport Bar and Grill Incorporated, that's the licensee, established a pattern of hosting unreasonably loud entertainment events. And after agreeing to obtain all necessary building permits, the licensee invited members of the public to congregate in and around what is an unpermitted and presumably unsafe structure and in violations of stock work orders, which are themselves building code violations. And in the liquor rules, as you'll see, the building code is directly implicated. You cannot make material changes to the physical structure or to your use of the property as a liquor licensee without approval of the local licensing authority. In this case, the liquor licensee also violated its duty to report felony conduct that occurred on its premises, and that is part of our implementing ordinance. So we'll get to the law on that, but I'm just giving you the overview so that you know what to expect as a roadmap here. As I stated earlier, a liquor license is a privilege and not a right. So there's no unlimited right to a liquor license, and once granted, a liquor license is always subject to valid regulations under which it is issued. So the determination of whether to renew or not renew a liquor license does not in any way indicate or implicate a constitutional liberty interest. The question is, should this privilege continue after considering the evidence? The liquor rules, and these again are promulgated by the Department of Revenue, and they're binding on all licensees throughout the state of Colorado and in the city of Evans. Rule 47-100H defines unreasonable noise, and it also prohibits unreasonable noise. Unreasonable noise is any violation of the local noise ordinance. So in Evans, we have the noise ordinance 9.16.045. And that ordinance provides that no person shall make, continue, or cause to be made or continue any unreasonable noise, and no person shall knowingly permit such noise upon premises or in or upon any vehicle owned or possessed by that person under the person's control or operation. And then this continues, and I violate the rule of putting too many words on a PowerPoint slide, but I just want to make sure that you have all the law that you need and the tools that you need. So in section B, the purpose of putting this up there is a couple things. The second paragraph in section B states, or sentence, members of the police department, upon receiving a complaint and then investigating such complaint, are empowered to make a prima facie determination as to whether noise is unreasonable. And then there are factors as to what constitutes or might constitute a prima facie case for unreasonable noise. The time of day, size of gathering, the presence or absence of noise amplification equipment, and any other factors tending to show the magnitude or disruptive effect of the noise. This is El Tropicana's application this is part of the application materials. It's an exhibit included in the lease as to how El Tropicana is expected to use their property. And it specifically states that no use or operation will be made that would constitute a noise or sound that is objectionable due to intermittence, beat, frequency, shrillness, or loudness. The lease is also included in your materials. It prohibits any outdoor amplification equipment or anything that would cause noise outside of the premises in the lease. Unfortunately, Mr. Bocanegra, the owner of El Tropicana, has been convicted now 3 times for violating the local noise ordinance, although there were multiple warnings and citations, as you'll hear from, or warnings prior to these citations, as you'll hear from the police department. And this is a court document signed by Judge Michael Stewart. And what it states is that that the violations occurred at the El Tropicana, 3520 11th Avenue in the city of Evans. There were 3 convictions, which means they're proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And the facts surrounding those convictions in the police reports were admitted to as well. And the citations are specifically noted here. It's important to note that in the second paragraph there's a conviction from July 26th of 2020, and then subsequent convictions on September 26th and then October 8th. And there also, you'll hear evidence that the noise continued into the Halloween, October 30th or 31st time period as well. But let's take a look at the complaint from that July 26th, 2020 noise violation. That, as I stated earlier, the noise ordinance is complaint driven. This complaint came from over 4,000 feet from the El Tropicana, nearly a mile away. The radius of noise that covers is beyond unreasonable. Yet the violations continued. It didn't stop after that, it continued. There are also building code violation problems, and I'll get to the law on that, but I'll just paraphrase what the rules state, is that a liquor licensee cannot make material, physical alterations to the property without the consent of the licensee, and also cannot make material changes in the use of the premises. Excuse me, I said licensee, I meant licensing authority, and also cannot make material changes to the use of the property without approval from the licensing authority. Any structure, and Rocco DeLuca, the building official, is here and can testify to this, any structure that requires a building permit is a material physical change to the premises. And without a building permit, a structure is presumably unsafe because its safety cannot be verified in any way. And it is not permitted, and you'll see that the El Tropicana agreed to obtain all necessary building permits as a condition of its current license, liquor license. Here's that regulation, 47-302. After issuance of a license, the licensee shall make no physical change, alteration, or modification of the licensed premises that materially or substantially alters the licensed premises or the usage of the licensed premises from the latest approved plans and specifications on file with the state and local licensing authorities, without application to and the approval of the respective licensing authorities. The implementing statute that the city of Evans has adopted is section 5.08.160 of the Evans Municipal Code. And I'll read that too because it states, it's highly relevant. No license shall be issued, renewed, or transferred. No license shall be issued, renewed, or transferred unless the building in which the business or license activity is carried on meets all of the requirements of the zoning, building, electrical, plumbing, and fire, mechanical, housing, and dangerous building codes, and if applicable, the Weld County Health Department rules and regulations. In this case, in the lease that was submitted as part of the application materials, the El Tropicana it provided their lease, and it has a paragraph 8, and then subparagraphs 8.1 and 8.2. Subparagraph 8.2 specifically states as a prohibited use that the El Tropicana Sport Bar and Grill Incorporated will not be used as, in the bottom sentence there, an entertainment facility, disco, or other dance hall or nightclub establishment. As part of the application materials, Jose Bocanegra, on behalf of El Tropicana Sport Bar and Grill, signed an affidavit of compliance. This is part of the application materials for this particular license. And it states, I, Jose Bocanegra, hereby state that I will comply with all building, fire prevention, and law enforcement requirements of the City of Evans and with the Weld County Health Department requirements as required. I understand that failure to obtain the required permits or failure to comply with the accepted laws and regulations of the above agencies will result in my license application being refused or my license being immediately suspended or revoked if I hold a current license. And this is where Heather Utrata will take over the presentation to explain how that affidavit and other applicable codes were violated.
Thank you, Drew, and good evening, Mayor Rudy and members of council. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Heather Utrata, thank you, and I am the community development technician for the city. All building permits go through me, as well as all liquor license renewals to check on building violations and any open permits. So this one definitely came my way. So as Drew mentioned in the previous slide, that I'm going to skip back here real fast. So this is directly from El Tropicana's liquor license renewal application. This is the affidavit of compliance. It does very clearly state that the terms of the liquor license include adhering to all building codes and obtaining all required permits, failure to do so resulting in the application being refused or the current license being revoked. So, however, on October 22nd, city staff did notice construction at El Tropicana, and a building permit had not been obtained or even applied for this construction. So staff reached out to our building official, Rocco DeLuca, and a stop work order was issued. The first stop work order was issued on October 28th. Code references from the city's adopted 2018 International Building Code very clearly state that a permit is required for construction and that failure to obtain a permit will result in a stop work order. So even though the applicant signed the affidavit stating that he understood that violating the building code could result in the revocation of the license, he did begin to construct a very large two-part patio cover behind El Tropicana, and this resulted in the posting of the stop work order. So again, the first stop work order was issued on October 28th, but the building official revisited the property on October 30th, and the first stop work order had been removed, which in and of itself is a building violation. So a second stop work order was issued. And to be clear, a stop work order means that construction and work must cease, but also that the building or structure that's being worked on cannot be used or occupied until it has been permitted, inspected, and deemed safe by the building official. So the evening of October 30th, just a matter of hours after the second stop work order was issued, the stop work order was violated when concert attendees and a band congregated under the structure. And we know that it was violated due to noise disturbance reports, which resulted in police visiting the property, and also through Facebook videos that were posted on the business's Facebook page. So to give you a little bit of an overview of the building violation, this is the licensed premises. This is referred to in Colorado Liquor Regulation 47302, which was previously mentioned. This was obtained from the liquor license application itself. And this is part of the permit application that was eventually submitted about 3 weeks after the second stop work order was issued. So you can see those red outlined rectangles there. That is the unpermitted structure, and it is very well within the licensed premises, which is a direct violation of Colorado Liquor Regulation 47-302. This is a picture of the structure itself. Hopefully you can see there's two portions to it. There's one side that's kind of in the forefront and then a second side, a little bit in the background of the picture. It's roughly the size of the entire building. So quite a large structure. Upon his initial kind of visual inspection, the building official did note that the size and depth of the caissons, as well as the size of the rafters, might not be sufficient for the size of the structure. But without the proper plans and the inspections that would come through the building permit process, we simply can't be certain. So despite 2 stop work orders and the fact that no part of the structure has been deemed safe, El Tropicana did actively invite members of the public to congregate in, near, and around the structure for a concert on October 30th. And Officer Garcia will share some video footage of the stop work order violations, and a couple of slides here with us. As you may or may not know, Safebuilt is the company that the city contracts with for inspection, plan review, and building official services. And Rocco DeLuca from Safebuilt, who is the city's building official, is here with us today in case there are any questions regarding those stop work orders or anything further from the building perspective.
Rocco, did you want to make a comment or?
The one and only comment that I have is I can't deem the structure as being safe because a requirement for a commercial structure in the state of Colorado requires a structural engineer to design it. I'm not qualified to base any judgment on that other than to say, because I don't have any of those documents provided, I have to deem that as an unsafe condition. I can't move off that until I have something provided by a licensed Colorado structural engineer to tell me the caissons, the size of the columns, the size of all the rafters, and the distances and the measurements. We have no idea as far as lateral movement or uplift of wind, and we do get quite a bit of wind around here. So those are my concerns. Yeah, and we have not received documents that do provide what we can base any sort of requirements by the building code. So we have tried to work with the owners or the tenants of the property, but the biggest thing is we have to have those documents in order to move forward with that. So at this time, I don't have anything that I can base any requirements of what we have.
And just for the record, I'd asked Mr. DeLuca if they had made any attempt to work with the licensee.
Yeah.
The question.
And like I said, the biggest concern that I have is I had staff apply 3 stop works, 3 notices on the building, and they're clearly noted that it says right on them that that's a violation in itself of removing that document. Only the building official or authorization from me to staff or whoever I deem necessary to remove that. So every time we've placed one on there, it's been pulled down.
And if I can just add a note about their application, they, like I mentioned, they did turn in an application about 3 weeks after the second stop work order was issued. However, the application was not sufficient, and it has been sitting on hold since the end of November, I believe. So we have not heard anything further regarding that.
And Officer Luis Garcia will present law enforcement concerns.
You start the first one first? Yeah, and I go from that.
Yeah, I'll start with the law on that. Public safety concerns.
He's gonna start off, sir.
Okay.
Thanks. This is an important regulation under the liquor rules. Conduct of establishment. Regulation 47-900. Each licensee, I'll let you read that, or I'll read it. Each licensee, employee, or agent of such licensee shall conduct the licensed premises in a decent, orderly, and respectable manner, and shall not serve a known habitual drunkard or any person who displays any visible signs of intoxication, nor shall they permit a known habitual drunkard or any person who displays any visible signs of intoxication to remain on the licensed premises without an acceptable purpose. Nor shall the licensee, his employee, or agent knowingly permit any activity or acts of disorderly conduct as defined by and provided in 189106 CRS, nor shall a licensee permit rowdiness, undue noise or other disturbances or activity offensive to the senses of the average citizen or to the residents of the neighborhood in which the licensed establishment is located. The unreasonable noise violations fall within this under the definition of unreasonable noise in the regulation, as I set forth earlier. And those are law enforcement concerns, of course. Those all occurred within the licensed period, as did all these other events that we'll be talking about, including the building code violations that have already been discussed. In furtherance of that rule, Evans has its own ordinance, and that requires that licensees shall conduct his or her establishment in a decent, orderly, and respected manner, and shall not permit within or upon the licensed premises the loitering of habitual drunkards or intoxicated persons, lewd or indecent displays, profanity, rowdiness, undue noise, or other disturbance or activity offensive to the senses of the average citizen or to the residents of the neighborhood in which the establishment is located. Section B of that same ordinance provides that it is unlawful for any licensee, permit holder, or his or her employee to fail to report immediately to the police department all violations of city, state, or federal laws which constitute felonies and misdemeanors, such as disorderly conduct or other offenses involving a breach of the peace, such as assault and harassment. So if a licensee sees a felony, that must be reported to the police department immediately by the licensee, or a misdemeanor or other conduct. So Officer Luis Garcia has had interaction with the El Tropicana and its owners, and he is going to explain his interaction with them and provide evidence from police reports that are included in his notes with the dates of those police reports and some of the copies of the police reports and video footage on body cam or otherwise included in police department records. And he'll explain within those ordinances the context of these videos, and based on the ordinances, and if we need to go back and refer to them, these particular videos were selected because they directly implicate those liquor rules that we just discussed. And I'll turn it over to Officer Garcia.
All right. Hello, City Council. My name is Luis Garcia. I'm a patrol officer with the City of Evans. I've encountered Tropicana in several occasions. Tropicana is located in my beat, so District 1, which I connect take care of citizens and business in that area, as well as the rest of the city. I came in contact with the Tropicana due to the first video of the unreported felony assault. My Detective Rodriguez is the one who took this report. He first went, got the report from the UC Health Hospital and not directly from the Tropicana staff or anyone involved. The victim got hit by a bottle, and basically they went to UC Health. UC Health called us in, and that's how the investigation began. Here shortly we'll show you the video. I'll explain to you. It's a very quick video. You'll see a fight happen, a bottle being thrown, and kind of the video ends. And this video we got from the patrons who were there, not from any staff member, anyone involved at this specific time. There was no video surveillance footage available. They had not installed cameras. So this is how everything began. After we see this video, I explain a little more why we focused and explained to him what was going on with the business, and it could not continue this path. Please. You guys clearly see there was a disturbance that happened there. All that happened there, you see staff all around, and no one from Tropicana staff called us about this. The only way we got notified about this was because of UC Health, like I mentioned again. Second. Go ahead, sir.
Luis, what type of injuries did this person sustain?
It was a breaking her nose, and I believe slicing the skin under her eye. I don't have the pictures up for it, but that's where it came out to be. The person was eventually arrested. So that happened on the June 7th, June 7th, 2020. And then throughout that weekend, through officers, I heard there was 4 physical fights that happened in there that were reported, but no one told the police about them. So we couldn't investigate them because we know who the suspects were, we know who the victims were. We had 0. So with all this being involved, the assaults that were in this establishment, we said, like, what's going on? I sat down with Mr. Bocanegra on the 10th. It was myself and Sergeant Bryant sat down. I provided a city ordinance to them, specifically 508-200, which is hey, you need to tell us about anything that has happened in your establishment. That way we can take action if we need to. And he was explaining both in English and Spanish because I am bilingual. I do understand he does speak both as well. So it was a very fluent conversation, a very light conversation. It was not a very harsh. It was like, hey man, I'm here to make sure your business succeed. I very focused on him. I was like, I don't want you to see going on the wrong path. So that was about, I want to say about 25-minute conversation. We were in his business, and then we talked about cameras, and he was showing me where they're going to put him and all that, and what we can do to better the situation. Also, he at that time there were some minors that were in his facility that were caught drinking. I have no reports to document that, but that was passed to the officers about that. And basically, Jose advised me that day that like, hey, we knew about these. We're going to cut them off. They cannot enter my establishment after a certain time. We're like, that's on you. We just have to make sure that you are prepared of 21 over drinks and under 21. And then Jose also stated that he was very eager to work with the police and did not want to get the UIs from this establishment. As we mentioned to him, there was going to be some. And we continue on with several fights. Fights, calls. You guys do have an outline. There's several ones, so I'm not going to go through a specific one. We jump on to 6/19, June 19. An 18-year-old showed up intoxicated at that establishment. She was taken to North Carolina Medical Center. Also, while dealing with the 18-year-old, a patron was tossed out from the establishment due to fighting. You're going to see here the video of the 18-year-old there. You're going to see Mr. Bocanegra. He's the one who called us, says, hey, this person came here with some friends and about 11 o'clock or a little after 11 and then left. The call to us about this 18-year-old being intoxicated at this establishment was at 11:58. So if we're going by his statements, there was a period of time this 18-year-old was intoxicated in this facility. We were not able to determine if this 18-year-old got served at this facility, but the 18-year-old should not have entered if in that intoxication level, or we should be notified immediately about this. The video, yes, please.
She came probably like 11, after 11, and we not served to her. She came with some other guys to the patio. I can show you the camera when they came here, and she's all drunk.
And they left without her?
Yeah. The other girl, I don't know where she at. She left. So, we don't want to be in trouble.
What? Where do you stay?
Where do you live?
If you guys clearly see this, and we can replay it, you see the 18-year-old leaning against the entrance of the Tropicana. And if we go through Mr. Bocanegra's statements, she was there for a period of time. And if his staff was aware of who was entering, they should have let us know of her intoxication level. All right. Okay, we go on to June 29th. The officers were called in for a traffic accident hit and run at approximately 1:22 hours in the morning. Someone hit a patron's vehicle and then left. So officers are there investigating the traffic accident hit and run. The officers go inside and they're seeing video surveillance footage. That way they can determine who was the driver who took off. While they're doing that and they exit out to the scene, there's 2 patrons fighting in front of them. Literally open up the door and they see 2 patrons fighting in front of them, which will be the next slide here. It'll be 8869, fighting in public, please.
Hey, knock it off. Knock it off. Knock it off.
Take that motherfucker to jail.
Get on your face.
Take that.
And like I said, this was unrelated to traffic accident. They just walked out outside and they were fighting in front of his parking lot. We move forward to July 4th, 2020. We have a DUI driver that was stopped for speeding. The driver was 20 years old. He stated to the officers that he was at Tropicana Tropicana Bar and had some beers. You'll see the clip of officer contacting the driver, and he's 20 years old. I'm not sure if the age is set on the video, but it said where he was coming from and how much drink he had. 9191, 9191.
Serving alcohol to
There.
a minor.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, where are you coming from?
We're coming from Tropicana.
Oh, okay.
Tropicana?
All right. They have a good band there tonight?
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay.
They always do. They always
Right. How much did you have to drink tonight?
do. It's just like about 3 beers, man.
3 beers? Okay. When was your last beer?
Like about an hour ago.
About an hour ago? Okay. All right, cool, man.
There is more to the footage, but that's the main concept. On the 6th of July, there was another DUI driver that exited Tropicana parking lots without headlamps. The driver was arrested for DUI, and cocaine was found in his vehicle. Unsure if the cocaine was inside the establishment, but it was in the vehicle once we came in contact with him. Okay, then we move on to July 26, 2020. That was a noise violation. Officers were called out to give him the citation for noise violation. Mr. Bocanegra said, contact my attorney. Officers were still there. They told him to turn the music down. The music was not turned down right away. It took them about half an hour before lowering the music while police were present. The RP currently for that one lived, you saw the diagram, in 29th Street in Greeley, so not even in our facility. If you can please play the video, it's 10358.
What you need to do. It has all your information up there.
So I got a fine and I need to go to the court?
Yeah, so it's a mandatory summons, so you have to appear in court.
Required to go to court.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay? Cool. So your court date's on there, your fine's on there, all the information is on there. All right?
Yep.
Any questions for me?
No.
Okay.
I can go to the court and I can explain to them,
Sure. Explain your side.
Here's the deal tonight. You have 2 choices. The band goes inside, or the band's
See, waiting to
done.
get out.
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah. Band has to go inside, or band's done. If that doesn't happen, we may have to start making arrests for noise ordinance violations. Okay? I mean, better some business than no business, right? So the music's way too loud. Band either goes inside or the band's done for the night. So if you want to get them on the radio, let them know to shut down their set so they can move inside.
Just like that?
Yeah.
Can I get your card?
Yeah, you can get my card.
Here's your ID back.
All right. Anything else?
Not for right now.
That's it.
Cool. Right, man. See ya.
You want to pull your car forward so that this guy can get out?
Clearly on the video, you guys can hear the music. You saw the entrance of Tropicana. They were almost to 11th Avenue, and the sound was blaring. You can see here the hornets. Also, he was told, Mr. Bocanegra, to lower the music immediately. Still decided not to do it. Half an hour later, that's when it was lowered. The next one, there's no video for this. On the 26th as well, officers were still on scene. Officers witnessed a kidnapping that happened at Tropicana. A male physically carried a victim out of a Tropicana and forced her into the vehicle. The suspect was arrested and was found in possession of cocaine as well. All right, we move on to September 6th, 2020. We have another loud music complaint. The officer could not hear people next to him. The officer went in there. They will show the video, and you can hear how clear the music is. It's like if you were playing it on yourself. If you can please play 12710. It was a very short video. It was just to show you guys how loud the music is. and how the officer could not hear who was next to him. We move on to September 20th, 2020. There was a disturbance in the parking lot. Basically, the patrons were fighting inside the bar, and then they were escorted out, which they continued again to fight. 1, 3, 4, 6. Yep. If you can place the 1, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6. At this video, you can also hear the sound of tasers, which were not deployed by any officer. So we would have to say there'll be security. We did not know if any patrons got tased or anyone was. But what we heard was they were kind of herding their patrons out of the business by the taser sound. So we just heard it while we were outside.
Yeah. That's my foot. Huh? That's my foot.
Oh, someone's getting tased.
So you guys heard that little clip? That was from this. No officer deployed their taser that day. All right, we go down to October 25th, 2020. Officers were flagged down to assist in removing a male from the establishment as he was getting physical with staff. Officers make contact, deal with that situation. The video clip we're going to show is the intoxication level that this place is providing. It's a female. You can see her. She's very emotional. She's unstable, and her speech is very slurred. You can see kind of half of it because I think the jacket or something was covering the other portion of the camera, but you'll see her side, and you can hear how she's talking. If you can please play 15215.
I live and I pay taxes on Montego Bay 2520. Hey, Montego Bay.
2520 Montego Bay.
That was her intoxication level. Excuse me for that. We move on to October 30th, 2020. Loud noise complaint. Mr. Bocanegra was cited for that. The entrance for this day was after the stop work orders had been entered. And basically, they moved the patrons from the main entrance, which was the exit to 11th Avenue, to the back side where you guys saw the wooden fence. So that was the main entrance for that event. You can see in the clip the crowd. You can see we can see the police officers as well as people being permitted inside the structure, which has been undeemed correct or not. 15523, please.
Al ritmo de cumbia, y precisamente se llama el ritmo de cumbia, pero el ritmo
They did have a big crowd, and it was a live band. That's why we were called for that one. Then we go to November 15, 2020. I completed a walkthrough as they had an event, and this video just shows that they were occupying the uncertified structure, 16369. All right. You guys saw there's people underneath the establishment for that structure. We had no issues that day. Then we move forward to November 22nd, 2020. An assault that occurred inside the bar with security staff. And no report as well. The report was completed next morning, which I personally took. It was the victim who came to me, and I took the report from them. It was a domestic violence issue. The video clip you're going to see is the bar. I took this footage from the video surveillance footage of the assault that we took for the criminal case. 16787, please. So you see them right there? So if you guys saw, the female approached the male, which the ex-boyfriend, husband, and punched him. You see staff intervene. From there, the incident continues a little more longer. And there's another shot of when she's actually trying to pull him out of the bar. And none of this, we were notified at all, zero. The only reason we got notified is because the victim came to us the next day and said, hey, this happened last night here. It is to document she was intoxicated that night, and she also got a different assault charge when she actually fought her friend as well in the parking lot. That was that. The bar closed after this due to the COVID restrictions dialogue, so that kind of ended the whole thing. Also, to be noted, I've been in contact with the State Colorado Liquor Board, who in talks advised me that there was hidden ownership of an establishment that they found out that it was Mr. Victor Pond. I was not notified about who he was until through these reports, but basically in my eyes, Mr. Bocanegra was the only owner and ownership of this establishment. He came out later on in the vicinity. So that's from the liquor board who they advised me about. And that would be all my presentation for you guys.
At this point, too, we'd like to ask if Chief of Police Rick Grant has any comments that he'd like to make.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to talk about it because there's no microphone here. I think, I'm very concerned with how this establishment is being managed. When they first opened up, and Officer Garcia and Sergeant Bratton, who were trying to work with the owners, tell them about what the laws are, talk to them about security, things they can do to mitigate problems in the bar. Our focus was from the beginning and throughout the summer to help them be successful. We want successful businesses in Evans. But the calls for service continued, and I became increasingly frustrated that it was almost like we would talk to them, we would tell them, you've got to do this, and not only not compliant, it's almost like they're just snubbing their noses at us. We're trying to explain to them what's needed to be done. We go in on noise complaints. Typically on a noise complaint, officers don't walk in and just issue a summons on the first complaint. Usually we go in, talk to them and say, hey, we've got a complaint, can you please turn it down? If you have to come back, we have to write you a ticket. And yet we're still going back there repeatedly on these noise complaints. And people from 4,000 feet away are complaining. It's causing me significant concern. I can't imagine how much folks living in the immediate area must have been stirred by some of the music. They were talking about having live bands on this patio, the amplified music. And I was just very disheartened by the lack of response from the business, and then just concerned that we really need a business that draws this kind of clientele where we're getting fights, we're fighting in front of officers are having to engage physically with these clients and these customers, intoxication levels are high, we're getting DUIs, people leaving there, we're making arrests for DUIs. I don't know, Officer Garcia, I don't know how many reports you've listed on your document.
We have several, sir.
How many?
We have, I don't know the number, but we do have several in here.
Yeah, pages, and those aren't even the warnings. Those are just where we've actually taken action. So my concern is from a public safety perspective, I just don't feel like these are good partners and good neighbors to have that. Thank you.
Can I ask you, did you want to say something else? What was very shocking to me, what I just showed you guys and kind of briefed you guys, that was only a little portion of it. All this happened in a 6-month period. So it's not like, hey, we're talking 1 year here, 2 years here. 6 months, we have a lot of officers in this one place, which in my eyes, I feel is unfair to have that many officers in just one establishment. Thank you.
So the evidence that you have seen are the concerns that the administrative review team has with regard to renewing this liquor license. The importance of one violation or one piece of evidence over another is up to the liquor licensing authority to determine, as well as the ultimate determination of whether the liquor license should be renewed or not renewed. I do know that Mr. Grant will want to make a presentation. I expect that he's going to try to entertain some sort of a settlement agreement. For us, I can say, just based on the evidence that's presented, it's difficult to imagine a conditional license agreement that does not have the conditions that have already been violated on numerous occasions. But it will ultimately, of course, be the determination of the liquor licensing authority to determine whether to renew or not renew. And I'll invite Mr. Grant to make any statements or ask any questions of any of the witnesses, and that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it right over to Mr. Grant, is it? I'm going to turn it right over to you, Councilwoman Spear, wanting to make a statement.
I need to make a public announcement on this. On one of these occasions, I did not know that it was your establishment, but I was one person who called in for a complaint of loud music. And I thought it was by my local park is where I thought it was. So I was quite surprised to find out that it was this establishment given the distance away. So if you feel that, I do believe our city attorney has some information about this.
Yeah, so if any of the council members have been to El Tropicana and or in the event of any of them that noise, I suggested that they disclose that. And in light of Councilmember Spears' disclosure, I think it's appropriate to ask El Tropicana. It's my understanding that you don't feel that your call to the police affects your ability to be fair at this hearing.
Like I said, I mean, I don't think that that has anything to do with it. Other than that, I did call, but I had no idea that it was their establishment. So I am going to leave it up to them to see if they would like for me to continue on. I didn't know about the other issues until this was brought before me.
Yeah. So the only issue I suggested to Councilmember Spear that she disclosed that she had made one of the noise complaint call at some point. And I just asked Tropicana if they have any objections or participating.
That's always a difficult spot for me to be in, but I would ask you to recuse yourself. And again, it's not that I don't think you're a fair person, but just what you just said in here makes you a witness to this. You've basically just given testimony against my client. Yeah. And so I would ask that you recuse yourself.
It's up to you. Okay.
That's fine. I'm happy to recuse myself then.
And I'm not asking you to leave or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, so she won't participate
in the vote. Okay.
All right.
I appreciate that, and I apologize. I don't want you to think
it's unfortunate. Thank you.
that I'm personally trying to insult you in any way. Thank you. I'm Tom Grant, and I'm here with the licensees today. If I may approach, I made a little outline to follow along with some things that I'm going to be talking about. So I'll start my presentation by saying that the city just gave you a lot of information, and today it's not smoke and mirrors, and I'm not going to try to convince you guys that there have been no violations and that the city just misconstrued all of that. I think that the police department does an excellent job, and that they're trying to keep the community safe, which we appreciate, and I know that council appreciates that a lot. But I'll go through them kind of individually. There are some things that were said that I'll take issue with. Some of the video that was produced, I have some comments about that I would ask you to consider and to share some concerns that may be raised in that regard, because they were, in many cases, really brief little snippets of something that happened without a lot of explanation and without identifying even who's in them. And I'll get into this in more detail, but something that sticks with me as I was sitting here is if you play back a video of something that happened, well, depending on how loud you turn up the volume on whatever you're listening to it on, you're not hearing the actual volume that the officer heard. You're hearing the volume that we played things at today. So I think that can certainly skew that. In any case, the memorandum, and you don't need to read all of it as we're going, but I wanted to review it a little bit with you. Again, instead of a PowerPoint, you don't have to look at it, but just following along on the Evans Municipal Code, it talks about no license
provided for by this chapter shall be issued or held by an applicant who's not paid all required fees. In this case, that's been done. A person who's not of good moral character. And again, some mistakes were made, yes, I get that, but I don't necessarily gather from that that council should make the conclusion that that means that either of these gentlemen who are licensees are of bad moral character. And then it goes through 3, 4, and 5 talk about good moral character. Any corporation whose officers, directors, or stockholders holding over 5% of the outstanding issued shares or capital stock that are not of good moral character. Again, in this case, we just have the two gentlemen, Mr. Bocanegra and Mr. Aho, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. It's J-O-J, Victor Ho. Any person employing, assisted by or financially in whole or in part, any person not of good moral character. So again, if there were other investors and things like that is really what the statute says. And when you're making an initial decision on a license, there's really only 2 factors that as a liquor licensing board you consider. And one is whether the needs and desires of the neighborhood have been met. And 2 is whether or not the person is of good moral character, the applicants are, which would include anybody who owns stock. My argument here is that we should think about that in a similar fashion, because the nature of what we're doing here today is kind of the nuclear option in terms of when you have a hearing like this, it's very different than a show cause hearing that I'm going to talk about later, and in particular in my closing. But what I mean by that is it's just a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Either they get renewed or they don't. There aren't options for council to consider, really, and this is something that I spoke with Mr. Lyman about, is tried to negotiate a settlement, and procedurally, and I think he's correct, said, you know, there's really, it's not a negotiation, there's not really much we can say. I'm just going to present my case to council, and you can talk to council about your case and what your concerns are. And at the end of the day, I do have some ideas that I want to present to you in that regard. The unreasonable noise violations, again, we saw evidence of some calls from citizens. The kind of things that I wanted you to kind of think about with regards to unreasonable noise is that establishment has been there, I think, for, somebody told me right before the hearing, so don't hold me to this if I'm wrong, I might be, but like 60 years or 52 years or something. Not El Tropicana, but that it's always been a bar. And if we think about that, you know, back in the old days when it was the new plantation, there weren't so many housing units around. In other words, the density that's been created by growth, which a lot of times growth is a good thing, obviously. It provides tax revenue and does good things for the city, and it's a good thing that people want to come to Evans and want to live here. But when you have real high density living like that in close proximity to an establishment that already existed, what you wind up with is, if there's an occasion, which there has been clearly, where noise was too loud, it's nothing to think that 15 people could call in an hour or less. I mean, you have hundreds of living units that are just a few blocks away and just directly to the east that didn't used to exist. So I'm just saying, asking the council to think about that. And the evidence, again, that was provided via the clips. Some of it, there was, it sounded like there was music, clearly. And again, I'm not saying anyone's intentionally manipulating the volume, but there are speakers and sound amplification equipment in here. And I don't know what volume it's being played at. And I think the other point on the noise violations really comes down to well, I'll leave it at the noise amplification. The statute, and again, this is just me throwing out sort of some lawyer speak, but it's like, it's fairly open and vague to interpretation, unreasonable noise. And here there isn't anything measuring any particular decibel level that says this is how loud it was. Now clearly people can hear it from very far away, and apparently, and again, I'm not doubting it, there was a police report that said, wow, we heard it from 4,000 feet away. That's a ways. So I just think that's something that can be worked on. And I'm about to get to this. The next section has to do with the building code violations. But a lot of the improvements that are being made were being made to help with the noise problems and to eliminate some of that. And so they were taking steps in the right direction. Now, there was confusion about whether or not this required a building permit by my clients. And I think there's some confusion on that. So this is a good time to move to the sort of part 2, which is unpermitted building activities. And I think the important part of what is here is that it says, after issuance of a license, and this is at the very top, this is regulation, it's CLR, so Colorado Liquor Regulation, 47-302. After issuance of a license, the licensee shall make no physical change, alteration, or modification of the licensed premises. If it stopped right there, I'd say, well, pretty clearly, that materially or substantially alters the licensed premises. So again, I know you heard testimony that the city believes that that was a material or substantial alteration of the premises. You know, I would argue that there isn't proof that that substantially altered the licensed premises. And again, when we talk about the fact that there was maybe a little confusion, and I think it's been stated that my clients, particularly Mr. Ho, speaks almost exclusively Spanish and needs help often with an interpreter. Mr. Bocanegra understands pretty well English, but there can be some language barriers or problems that can be confusing, and they didn't build inside the building, which again, maybe to all of you who are more experienced being on the liquor license board, you understand that the licensed premises is the whole thing. I'm just saying I believe they were confused about that. They did, although late, come and apply and fill out an application. And it's my understanding the application is still pending. It just doesn't have everything they need. So in theory, they could work with the city, provide the additional information, and bring that up, make sure that it does comply with code and that it's safe. But I think overall they are good additions to the premises, and I don't believe that they violated section 47-302. There's a question, and I'm going to ask my clients to give a little bit of testimony, and maybe they can clarify this. But Mr. Bocanegra indicated to me when we were talking about that before they had the group, I think it was Young Dancers or whatever, that were going to be there, and I think the city was making the point, well, that could have endangered people, that the fire department came out there, that they looked at it, and that they had said that, given that a thumbs up, or said that it was okay, at least for that particular day. That's my understanding of their testimony on that, and I'll ask them directly. So then let's get to the disturbances and sort of the other law enforcement problems. And this is where I was saying I just made some notes about things that I think are different. The one point's already been made about, you know, noise amplification equipment and so forth, and that when you replay something, the volume at which you replay it can make it seem like it's really loud or that it's not as loud. The second notation that I made when I was watching the videos, and again, you'll have to rely on your memory of this, but there was one of the videos where they're discussing with Mr. Bocanegra about the band has to either stop or go inside. And in listening to that, you can't hear the band at all. I mean, and they're, presumably, it's my understanding that they're standing in the parking lot of the facility of the El Tropicana, and it didn't seem like an unreasonable amount of noise. All I could hear was the officer's voice explaining to him what his options were and saying, you know, you can either take care of this by moving the band inside, and then one of the officers, I believe, said that, you know, some business is better than none, you know, pointing out that to get them to move inside. And again, according to the officer, it took some time to get things moved in. I couldn't hear any music on the video being played, and my clients did comply. And you know, we've had a lot of conversations, the three of us, about the importance of compliance and about things that they could do better, and that certainly is something they're working on, and that I believe if given another chance, they could do well, and I could help facilitate them working with the police department. A few other observations. The first assault video where they say that it's where the woman gets pushed or hit and then she retaliates. Again, that's like an 8-second video. I couldn't tell if anybody from El Tropicana was actually able to see that or not see it. And so can things happen in a bar? Do things happen in bars? I think we all know, you know, from years and years of experience that many other bars in this town and every town, you know, fights break out. Things like that can happen. And to me, there wasn't any indication that anyone was standing by or not doing anything. They allege throughout the city's presentation, they made it clear that 2 people from the bar had cocaine with them, but there was never any proof or allegation that the cocaine was actually in the establishment or that they got it from the establishment. So again, if this were a trial, and I know you're kind of sitting in a quasi-judicial capacity, acting as judges to make a decision, I would certainly argue that that was more prejudicial than probative. You know, you throw out the whole idea that, oh, there's cocaine there. There's nothing that ties these gentlemen to cocaine or says that they did anything with that regard, but I find it kind of inflammatory that they mentioned it. And certainly even if somebody did have cocaine inside the premises, unless they see it, how would they know that? I mean, they don't search patrons as they come in the bar any more there than they would anyplace else. So just, again, wanted to point that out. One of the videos that, again, was quite confusing. There's a person that comes out and breaks up the fight and is saying, knock it off, knock it off. It wasn't clear to me, and I didn't hear testimony about, is that a police officer or is that an employee of the establishment? And so again, if it's an employee of the establishment, it's an example of them actually trying to break up a fight and to do the right thing. There's no evidence of underage drinking. They've never been cited for that. They talk about, they showed the one video where there's an 18-year-old leaning against the building, and they said he'd been leaning there a long time, but it wasn't testimony that he was inside or that he got alcohol from the establishment. So, you know, the kinds of things that I usually think of when I think of somebody's liquor license not being renewed are, you know, serving people underage, serving people who are visibly intoxicated. And again, there isn't evidence of that. And when I say that, it might seem kind of strange because you're like, well, wait a minute, they testified that they've written DUIs out of there. But I think we all know that you can be over the legal limit and be DUI, or especially DWAI, you know, impaired, like a 0.08 to a 0.1. and not show any signs of being visibly intoxicated, especially people who drink a lot or have a high tolerance for alcohol. They're not going to show signs, so it's not like they're staggering around drunk. The fact that people get a DUI out of there might be because the police are so close in proximity to the establishment and maybe see people leaving there and figure, hey, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, what are the odds if I pull this person over that they may have had a few drinks and I can give them a ticket. But it doesn't mean that that these are people who are staggering around inside the bar and that my clients are serving people who are visibly intoxicated or known drunkards. There's no evidence of any of that at all. So notification is required clearly. The liquor code requires it under conduct of an establishment, and the local licensing authority, the Evans Code also has a disorderly conduct to be reported by licensee, rowdiness, undue noise, disturbances, or activities. And my clients understand that. They know they have to be better about that. I would say, though, again, they're new to this. I was here, and I think some of you were here and probably approved their license. They're learning, and the whole idea of calling law enforcement when you own a bar is a double-edged sword. You're supposed to do it. It says so. But also, if you have law enforcement over at your establishment all the time, you wind up at a hearing or a show cause hearing or having problems. And you also might scare off your patrons. But we've talked about that, and I've told them, look, there has to be that balance. You need to call them at all times. Everything has to be reported. I totally agree with and understand and have talked a lot to my clients about what Mr. Lyman said. I mean, having a license is a privilege. It's not anything they're entitled to. They don't have a right to operate a bar. But I do believe that they are learning, getting better, making less mistakes, and I think that they could get. I don't know that any bar is ever perfect, but I disagree with the idea that they are bad for the city of Evans, that somehow their presence and the people that they have there are bad people, or that it's hurting the city. And in fact, even during this pandemic and so forth, they were still able to sell enough and pay taxes to the city of over $12,000. So I know that's not a huge amount, but they're making an effort, and it's very important to them and to their patrons that they stay open. So I'll have a little bit more of that in my closing. Right now, I'd like to have a few people. I'm just going to ask them a couple of questions. And if I may, I'll start out with Victor Ho. And Victor is being assisted by the interpreter. And are you able to hear her?
Sí.
Okay. And can you understand my questions?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. And so Victor, tell the council a little bit about the bar and your involvement in the bar. How long have you been involved?
Okay. Buenas noches a todos. Buenas noches a todos. Sí, lo que estamos acá arreglando es lo de la licencia, ¿verdad? Y el tiempo que yo llevo en este negocio, pues es un año, 2 meses.
But we hear about, I know it's about the renewal of the license, and the time that I've had been involved in this business is 1 year and 2 months.
Okay. And how often are you present at the business? Say, I know recently, because of restrictions regarding COVID-19, that you guys have not been opening. But prior to that, like on a normal Friday and Saturday night, are you there?
Abiertos, pero ¿con qué frecuencia usted está presente en las instalaciones?
Sí, ahorita llevamos cerrados como mes y medio, pero sí estamos frecuentemente ahí pues cuidando el negocio, como siempre, limpiando, teniendo en orden todo lo que tenemos ahí.
Well, right now we've been closed for about a month and a half, given the COVID conditions. But frequently we're there, taking care of the place, cleaning, and doing what we can to keep it in order.
Are either you or Jose always there when there's a crowd?
¿Y usted o José siempre están ahí presentes cuando hay una gran cantidad de personas?
Sí, por lo regular siempre estamos los dos.
Yes, habitually we're there, both of us, normally.
And if the liquor licensing authority were to renew your license, are you willing to work with law enforcement?
La autoridad de la licencia de licor renovara su licencia, ¿usted estaría dispuesto a trabajar con la policía y los agentes del orden público?
Claro, sí andamos trabajando ya de hecho con todas las restricciones que nos pusieron. Entonces nosotros ya estamos trabajando con lo de la construcción, estamos poniendo más seguridad. Pues ya contratamos de hecho una compañía de seguridad para que todo esté más en orden.
Of course, you know, we working on that, you know, with all the COVID restrictions and all, we have been working on the construction and on bolstering the security. We in fact hired a private security company.
Do you think that the private security company would help alleviate some of the problems that the city shared with the liquor licensing authority? Problems like fights and things like that?
Nosotros creemos que sí, porque de hecho estamos exigiendo personas capacitadas que sepan tratar con personas ebrias, que sean más responsables con su trabajo. Y sí estamos seguros de que sí ellos van a ayudarnos con esto.
Yeah, we think so. In fact, we are requesting that the people that we hire are trained and particularly that they know how to deal with individuals that are drunk and that, you know, have the responsibility in their job, you know, to know how to deal with that. And I believe that the security will be bolstered and they will help.
In addition to your new security guards, are you committed to calling the Evans Police Department if you see violations in your establishment?
Con el departamento de Evans si ve infracciones.
Sí, sí estamos comprometidos en eso, totalmente. Queremos trabajar también con los oficiales de policía.
Yes, of course, we are committed on that and to work hand in hand with the police authorities.
Are you willing to make sure that all of your employees are TIPS trained, that they go to training?
Así es, definitivamente que sí estamos trabajando en eso.
That's correct. Definitely we're working to make sure that takes place.
Okay. can you think of anything else that you want the licensing authority to know about your plans for improving the way you do business, so that if they grant renewal of your license, you're not back here?
Sí, definitivamente sí quisiera decirles que nosotros, ahorita, nosotros la verdad estamos empezando y somos nuevos en este negocio. Es como cualquier otro negocio, supongo. Empiezas, no sabes mucho y por eso se han cometido errores.
Yes, definitely. I want to say to you that the truth here in front of you is that we're starting up and we're new. We're new to this business, and like any other business, you know, when you're new, you have your learning curve where you learn from your mistakes. And we will not do this again.
Pero claramente estamos viendo que lo que estamos pasando ahorita, ¿verdad? Y sí, no queremos volver a tener esta junta por que nos quieran quitar la licencia o algo, porque vamos a tratar de cuidar todos los detalles que se nos ha pasado, porque la verdad sí estamos aprendiendo en este negocio, pero nosotros estamos dispuestos a trabajar bien con todos, con el departamento de policía, con todo acá lo de la ciudad, pagar taxes, todo lo que se refiere a un negocio bien hecho.
But of course, you know, we're here in front of you, and we want to work in every way we can with the police department, with the city, paying our taxes. We don't want to be here in front of you in this kind of situation again, and we want to take care of everything that is necessary. We're determined to do that, and we're learning, you know.
Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Muchas gracias por su testimonio.
I just have a short amount of testimony from a couple of other quick witnesses, if you'll indulge me. The next witness would be the landlord who owns the building, Rolando Marquin. That would be great, thank you. Oh, do you want to use that? Will that help you?
I'll just put it right here.
Okay. A little stand. Thank you. All right. Mr. Marquin, if you would please introduce yourself to the City Council and tell them a little bit about your ownership of the building and how long you've had it.
Good evening. I met most of you, and previously we have owned the property since 2018, July 2018, and obviously, as I think most everyone has seen, we did quite a bit of an improvement in the property from what previous owners had. I guess that's
okay. That's a little bit about that. In terms of the lease, it was a 1-year lease. Has that been renewed?
It has been renewed.
Okay.
And we're working on obviously trying to actually get it renewed again.
Okay.
As Tropicana continues doing business there.
And as the landlord, have you had reason to deal then in the past with Mr. Bocanegra and Mr. Ho?
I'm sorry, please repeat.
In being the landlord, have you had reason to interact with both Mr. Bocanegra and Mr. Ho?
I have, in the past, we have we have talked about how to improve the communication with the city. I have helped them with translation that they need. I have helped them review applications
and basically try to help them with any compliance matters that they have needed
Okay.
from us.
And since they've been running the establishment, have you been to the El Tropicana Sports Bar?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And when you have been there, can you share with the licensing authority what has your experience been?
Yep. So I've been there twice. Actually, I don't want to during the operating hours. The first time I was there, must have been around 10 p.m. The establishment was busy. I want to say I was actually sitting in the patio. There must have been about 40 people in the patio. There was music. And the main reason why I was actually at the Tropicana was to actually listen to how loud the music was.
Okay.
So at the time that I was there, I stayed there from about 10 to about 10:45 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I sat down, and the music, obviously, to my opinion, wasn't really that loud. But of course, I cannot testify later on the night if the music changed. The second time that I was there, I actually stayed there from about 11 p.m. to about 1 a.m. And the music for a bar was definitely reasonable. I think that we all have been to bars, and we know that bars are places where people go to enjoy themselves, listen to music, and have a drink. And for the time that I was there, it was almost 3 hours, 2.5 hours. It was definitely not an unreasonable amount of, unreasonable sound from the music, from the speakers that they had. So I cannot testify to unreasonable noise.
Okay.
Plus, I also I think if I'm not mistaken, the city does not have a code for the level of noise coming out of the bars, and that was as of when we operated the bar. I don't know if that has changed since.
Okay. In your dealings with the current owners of El Tropicana, have you found them to be of good character?
I have, yes.
Okay. And have they been fair in their dealings with you? Have they paid their rent? And
yep, they have.
Have you seen either one of these gentlemen in the 2 times you were there interact with the police department, or?
No, I didn't. I have been to the property several other times as I have come to do other cleanings and stuff, but the times that I have interacted with them outside of hours of operation have been me doing either coming in to work with a contractor to clean up on the property, or me coming out to work with the city to actually get it to clean up some of the adjacent property that they have near to our.
And you've seen the outdoor improvements then that have been made at the property?
I think everyone has. I mean,
okay.
I would hope that people have seen the improvements we made in the property.
Okay. And you know that, again, it was after the fact that an application for a building permit was filed?
Correct. An application for building permit has been filed. The tenants with my assistance have also started working with the RMG, which is the Rocky Mountain Group. They're both engineering and architectural firm on 37th Avenue. And right now, they're actually the process for them to begin producing documents required by the city for the building permit are on hold, as we are waiting for this to be settled. So.
Okay. Just one last question. I think in the city's presentation, they talked a little bit about your lease. In the paragraph 8 under the lease talks about permitted uses, and it says that a permitted use is to use it as a bar, but then there were prohibited uses, and one of them was using it as an entertainment venue / concert venue. And did we speak about that before the hearing? And is it your understanding that there's an agreement that it will not be used for live music?
Correct.
All right, I have nothing further. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
As we stated at the initiation of the hearing, the issue on liquor license renewal is distinguished from a new license application. So the moral character and whether the neighborhood needs are served are not relevant to this proceeding. The question is there competent evidence to determine that the liquor laws, which are the liquor code, the liquor rules, and the Evans Municipal Code, is there competent evidence to establish that the liquor laws have been violated? And in one page here, we have the findings and order from the Evans Municipal Court based on the guilty plea of Mr. Bocanegra. And it states as follows. The court finds that the defendant freely and voluntarily pleads guilty to 3 violations of the Evans Municipal Code section 9.16.045, unlawful noise, that separately occurred on various dates at El Tropicana Bar located at 3520 11th Avenue in the city of Evans. By pleading guilty, the defendant admits the facts regarding unlawful noise, resulting in citation numbers, and it sets the citation numbers and the dates, and those citation numbers and citations are included in the materials that you have. That alone is sufficient evidence to determine renewal or non-renewal of a liquor license and to be on solid legal ground in doing so. The performance on the lease and the relationship, the fact that the landlord describes what are unpermitted building activities according to the building official as improvements on the property that are good for the property when they have not been permitted is not really relevant. What's relevant is whether the liquor code and liquor rules have been violated and whether city council finds this to be an acceptable level of violation to continue the process of allowing for the privilege of a liquor license in the city of Evans. That concludes our remarks.
Okay, I wasn't quite ready to move to closing argument because I have one quick witness, so I'm sorry.
My apologies, Mr. Grant.
That's okay. Would you like to testify also? Yes. I guess maybe 2 short witnesses. Mr. Bocanegra would also like to address the Liquor Hearing Authority. Mr. Bocanegra, can you tell the Liquor Licensing Authority about your involvement with the bar? You're a partner, correct, with Mr. Yo?
Yeah, my name is Jose Bocanegra. I'm one of the owners, so I'm up there for a year and 2 months. And well, we started this business, me and my partner, to try to do something for live, you know. And my size, you know, I decided to do this. Probably I want to say a little bit about this. I decided to do this, and I work and oil field for like almost 10 years. So my daughter, she grew up with no father, usually with no father in home. So I decided to do something like this to be with her, you know, take her to school, pick them up after school, you know. And then I never think this was hard like that, you know. But we are learning, and then so we try to do better every day, you know. Like I'm a baby. We are babies, but you know how the babies learn to do things. You have to teach them. So we learning from the laws and from the police and from everybody. So.
Right. Kind of the same question that I asked to Victor. Hopefully it's not too repetitive, but just quickly, can you talk about things that you're going to do, a plan for how you would operate better if your license is renewed?
Yeah, if you guys decide to renew our license, you know, the patio, we start to do construction without a permit. I agree that, but we never thought we need a permit. We was confused. And then the patio, the construction is for the noise. That's exactly for is, you know, this is for you know, to try to work and don't have that kind of issues, you know, with the music. And then,
What do you mean that it's for the noise? Will the way that's built help keep the noise from traveling?
yeah. I mean, when everything, if we're working with the engineers right now, and then the plan is cover the walls and try to keep the noise inside, because we got a couple complaints for the noise, so that is for that that is a purpose for that.
And if your license were renewed, do you agree, after looking more carefully at the lease and having the city point that out, that it's not a live entertainment venue, that it can't be used as a concert venue? Would you agree to live by that? And because that might, well, go ahead and just answer.
Yeah, I agree that. And then we make a mistake. That was, I think, the whole thing about the noise. That was for the one band we brought, and then anyway, we pay a lot of money to them. We brought them from Mexico, and I called this woman from the city, Allison, to try to get an apartment, and she told me no. So that was too late. And then we make a mistake. I understand. I agree. And then we open to work with the city and follow the rules. And then we try to. I think we're doing exactly what the city asked for, and try to follow the rules and the codes and everything.
Okay. And that's what you'll be doing if you get the opportunity to move forward?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want the licensing authority to know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be, everything is, like I say, the construction is with a purpose, to keep the noise inside. If we get the opportunity, I know we make mistakes. We are learning, like I say, and then I think, 1 year is probably is too much for you guys to prove we are good owners, but for us, it's not that much, because, it's too much, because with all the COVID-19 and everything, the people at home, when we reopen this, they want to go, they want to hang out, they want to go out, and all the people I think for most, especially, I think for too many people it's hard. They don't want to be at home. So when they get out, they want to drink, they want to enjoy, and then I think it's not like we don't got a normal year. And with the police department, I try to work with them all the times. Mr. Luis Garcia is here. I call them all the times. When I was talking with him, and he told me, hey, you need to call us every time. I try to do exactly what they told me. Now I'm pretty sure from that day to today, I do exactly what they told me. I try to work with them all the times when we got issues, or we got something like anything with the people right there, and they ask me, hey, can I see the cameras? Can I see the video? I'm open to. I never say, hey, you know what? Come tomorrow. I don't have time. I was there all the time. And then when Luis, he called me a couple of times. He said, hey, can we meet out and I want to see your videos, your cameras. And I'm like, yeah, why not? I try to work with them. I try to do exactly what they told me. So.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Bocanegra. And our last witness, it'll be brief, is Yadara Medina, and she works at the El Tropicana bar. So thanks for indulging us. I know it's been a long hearing.
Buenas noches.
Good evening. Ms. Medina, can you tell the licensing authority in what capacity you're employed at El Tropicana?
Yo tengo 8 meses trabajando en el Tropicanas. Empecé trabajando en la cocina y ahorita estoy al lado de los dueños, ayudándoles con la administración de los trabajadores, a cómo correr el negocio, y como están diciendo ellos, aprendiendo a llevar un orden y tratando de trabajar lo más duro posible para que eso salga adelante.
I have been working at El Tropicana 8 months, and I started working in the kitchen, and I moved up to be like next to the owners, running the administration and learning how to take care of business, learning how to keep the proper order and working very hard.
Were you present at any of the video clips that were shown? Were you present for any fights or disturbances at the bar?
No, señor, y yo llego de las 4 de la tarde hasta que no se cierra el lugar.
No, sir. And I am there from 4 p.m. until the place is closed.
Have you personally seen either Mr. Ho or Mr. Bocanegra call police if there's anything going on or cooperate with the police department?
Por supuesto que sí. Incluso yo he salido porque él sale que va a hablarle a la policía y yo he salido a ver qué es lo que está pasando. Dice, solo le voy a hablar a la policía y le dirá, todo va a estar bien, todo tiene que estar bien porque ya viene la policía.
Of course, yes, absolutely. And I've been present when he says I'm going to have to leave and call the police. And, he comes back and tells me everything is going to be all right because the police have been contacted now. And he's always ready to do what is necessary.
Is there any other information that you would share with the licensing authority that you think they need to know about El Tropicana or the owners?
Sabe que sí, ahorita que estaba diciendo el oficial respecto al departamento de bomberos, a mí me tocó estar con ellos y hablar con ellos, y ellos fueron los que autorizaron para que tuviéramos el evento en el patio.
Yes, now that the spoken about the officer that said that the fire department was contacted, I actually was there, present, when we spoke to them and when they actually were the ones that authorized the event to take place outside in the patio.
Estuvieron 2 trabajadores de los bomberos y ellos no me pudieron dar una respuesta de que sí se podía hacer o no y trajeron a su jefe de bomberos.
And in fact, 2 of the firemen were there and they themselves could not give me an answer as of whether the event would take place or not, so they brought the chief of the fire department.
Y el jefe de bomberos me dijo que qué seguridad le daba yo para que ese evento se llevara a cabo. Le dije que nosotros estábamos trabajando y vamos a estar ahí, y aparte teníamos un buen equipo de seguridad, de una compañía de seguridad que iba a estar atento a todo lo que pudiese haber pasado en esta noche.
So the chief came in and inspected and asked me what kind of security would I give him that the event would take place adequately. And I told them that we were working very hard to make sure that it would be peaceful and that, we were hiring this security company, that the security company would do whatever it would take to make sure it would be orderly.
Last question. Are you willing to take any kind of training or anything that would either be a requirement of a license or negotiated with the city? Would you be willing to take TIPS training or other training?
Por supuesto que sí, creo que estamos aquí por un motivo, para que esa licencia se autorice, para capacitarnos y llevar adelante y mejorar en todo lo que en los errores que hemos estado cometiendo, mejorarlos y sacarlos adelante.
Of course, yes, absolutely. You know, I believe we're here for one reason, and that is to obtain the license, and I'm willing to do whatever training is necessary to move forward and to learn from the mistakes that we've made.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, finally, right? It's that part's over of our testimony, and just a couple of things that I want to state for the record, and it's more to preserve the potentially any arguments that we may have if there were to be an appeal filed of any decision. And so one of them is the evidence of convictions being shared, and whether or not that's appropriate evidence to use in a civil proceeding. I'm just raising that for the council. I'm not asking specifically for any kind of a ruling since we're not in a judicial process. But and the other is a due process potential argument. Again, we're in a little bit of a gray area because it's not a hearing about for a show cause hearing, but I would just say that not all of the evidence that was presented to you today was shared with me, and Mr. Lyman was kind enough to share a couple, like out of those 8 or 10 videos that we watched, I saw 2 of them before tonight, and again, I'm not looking for any direction on it, but just want to make that statement for the record so that it's there. So in terms of my closing then, and I'll try to be brief, I know we've gone on for quite a while, but Mr. Lyman pointed out that what you really need to focus on is, is there evidence of a liquor violation? And he gave you examples and said, yeah, pretty clearly. And I'm not going to dispute that there were violations. I think some of them, there's a question as to whether they're really liquor code violations or there are other types of, building code violations or city ordinances on noise. The typical liquor violations that you think of actual proof that people are being served underage or serving visibly intoxicated people, we didn't have any evidence presented of that. But there were violations. I think what's important, though, is that it doesn't say that if you find a violation, you must non-renew their license. It says you may. It's discretionary, and so it's going to be up to all of you to make that decision today and that determination as to what is the best course of action. And Mr. Lyman was right about, he said, well, Mr. Grant's probably going to ask you to consider some alternatives. And I am asking this licensing authority to think outside the box a little bit and to think about what is a way that the city's concerns can be met and balance that against wanting to give one more chance to a budding business that is getting started. And you heard both of the owners testify that they're trying to learn from their mistakes. And, I know it could be easy to dismiss that and say, well, they don't learn very fast, and, how many violations does a person get? But I do think that they are imbued now with the right attitude. Maybe it did come a little slow. I believe they want to work hard with the city and will use me and maybe some other people to help communicate with the people that are part of the administrative review team to make sure they're doing things right, and in particularly with the police department to try to mend those fences. I think there's clearly been some problems there, and there's some tension, and it's not a good thing when the police chief has to get up and say, I got some problems with the way they do business. They're not proud of that, and they realize they've made mistakes, and we're going to have to correct them. So let me talk to you about what I mean by thinking outside the box. What I am proposing to this licensing authority is that you grant a renewal of the license with the understanding that the city has every right, and that you could even, well, I won't advise you about what you can or can't do, I guess, but direct them, that right after that, they can issue an order to show cause. And that's where we do actually then have some room to negotiate back and forth about what is a reasonable way to handle this, to keep a really, tight lid on this, keep your thumb on it, whatever you want to call it, to make an Animal House reference, double secret probation, whatever you want to call it, they would understand that it's thin and that there aren't a lot of other opportunities to mess up. But if you did something like that, I'm just going to throw out an example, and I could negotiate with Mr. Lyman about, well, okay, how about if we do, as punishment for the things that have already happened in the past, what if we did a 3-month suspension and held 2 months in abeyance or something along those lines? And what if we required proof of all TIPS training and so forth, and that we, even if people had already been to TIPS training, we're going to make them go again, and a written stipulation about no live music, and that won't happen. I mean, these are ways that a lot of what was complained about could be resolved, and they could get another chance still to try to prove themselves that they are going to do something differently. And they talked about that they've hired security now, that the owners have. So we've got more security, potentially better training, a promise not to operate as a concert venue. These are all things that could be negotiated if you renew the license. But obviously, and that's kind of what I meant at the beginning when I was talking about this is kind of the nuclear option. What we're doing tonight is just a thumbs up or thumbs down. And if you go thumbs down, they're out of business. They don't have a license. There's no coming back from that. That's the end of it. And I know right now, especially, lots of businesses, whether it's a bar or a restaurant or other small businesses, are struggling. And that's, it is what it is. We're in a pandemic, and we are trying to fight through it. But to me, what most communities need to be doing is trying to open businesses and keep businesses open, not shutting them down. And just to be clear, there's no wishy-washiness to that. If the vote is thumbs down tonight, they're out of business, and it's over with. So another thought along those lines of thinking outside the box is to also think about that if you renew their license, even if the city came in, we tried to negotiate it, didn't look like it was going to work well, and they asked for a temporary suspension, and you suspend their license instead of canceling it, which is what a non-renewal would do, then that would give them an opportunity to at least recoup some of their investment. They may be able to then sell the bar. Obviously, this licensing authority would have to approve that. It would have to be reasonable people that you guys believed were of good character and could have a license transfer. But it's so much easier to do a license transfer, which I think most of you know, than it is to do a new license. And so giving them even that much of an opportunity that, okay, work with the city, if it's still seeming like it's headbutting and people aren't coming to the same conclusions, at least they might have an opportunity if the show cause hearing was set out a few months to look for somebody that they could transfer ownership to, as opposed to just taking the license. Another consideration if you're like, well, Tom, stop just pulling at our heartstrings, but yeah, I am trying to do that. They employ people, more than just Yadira Medina, who was here tonight to testify, but they have about 10 regular employees, and then some people, security guards and so forth, that are used on another basis. And, all of those people lose their jobs too, if this business goes out. And again, I understand that it's privilege and that they can't just do whatever they want and keep saying, well, let's forget about it. They have to comply, but you've heard them say that that's really what they want to work on, that that's what they want to do. And I think I mentioned already, you know, they pay taxes. It's not a huge amount, but they're trying to work hard and provide revenue to the city through sales tax. And I got that number from the city, and it was just over 12,000. I know, and I'll end with this, I guess. I know there's a temptation to say, well, Tom, everything you're telling us, so what you're really asking us to do is just kind of kick the can down the road. Like, what's going to happen? You know, we're going to have to make this decision later. They're going to file, the city will probably ask you then to consider a show cause hearing, and depending on if we don't have a negotiated settlement of that, we may have to take their license anyway. But I guess my answer to that and why it isn't just kicking it down the road, what really matters is that only two things can happen if you give them a chance. One is that they'll fail and you take their license anyway. The other thing, which would be great, is they'll actually prove to you, yes, we can comply, yes, we will comply, we're going to run our business in a different way and do a better job. And if they do that, then you're still getting tax revenue. People in this community have a choice and another place to go, a venue where they can go and enjoy the bar. And all those people keep their jobs, and these guys get that shot. So I do beg of you to renew their liquor license of El Tropicana and to consider some of the other options that could bring and that could happen. I'm not here to tell you I don't think that any punishment's appropriate, nor have I tried to say from the very beginning that I think they're completely innocent and do everything right, and that this isn't a me against the city thing, or I don't see it that way, or them. I'm not saying that the city made stuff up or exaggerated stuff. I'm just saying I think there's a chance that we could give them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Are there any questions that council would need to ask to come to their decision before we get into council discussion? We'll ask Mayor Pro Tem Clark first.
Yes, thank you. You asked a lot of the questions I was going to ask of the applicant, so I'm just going to, first of all, thank you for being here, and I appreciate you taking the time and, you know, owning up to some of the mistakes and everything that you've made and everything that shows, you know, your character and everything that you're trying to make amends, and hopefully, you know, maybe we can come to some conclusion. I'm not sure yet. But a few of the questions I have for staff is, prior to June 7, 2020, I think they came into business around September, October of 19. Was there any calls or disturbances or anything reported prior to that?
Officer Garcia, I think, can answer that. Personally, I don't have that information. The issue with regard to the liquor code and liquor rules in the city of Evans arose with the first video. It was a very fast video of a person having a bottle thrown in her face. That would be a class 1 or class 2 felony assault using what is a high rate of speed object being thrown at someone's face. That's a video I did share with Mr. Grant. The licensee is obligated to report that. They didn't, and that is what initiated Officer Garcia's contact with the licensee under the liquor code or liquor rules. Since then, I've counted 41 incidents of police activity, but I don't know what happened prior to June. We could get that information for you from the police department, but I don't have that.
Second, going to the event that was played on July 4th, 2020, regarding the DUI stop where the driver was 20 years old. From what I understand, he did say that he was coming from the El Tropicana bar. Knowing that the driver was 20 and he was subsequently seemed like arrested for DUI, was the incident investigated to see if El Tropicana bar did sell alcohol to a minor, being that the individual was 20? Was that ever investigated?
It was not, sir. On the video, says that I went to Tropicana, had 3 beers in the last hour. So that was sufficient for the criminal case. The officer did not engage and continue on to the establishment.
My other question is, if we chose, well, obviously the question is, if we chose not to renew their liquor license, obviously they would be out of business. Could we possibly renew their liquor license with conditions if we wanted to go that route? Is that something that is possible?
Attorney Scott Krob, we have something to say about that.
So my role tonight is to advise the council sort of what your options are, what the rules are. The assistant role is to provide presentation from staff. So that's why I'm responding to your question. And I think you have several options. I mean, one, obviously, you could deny it. A second option is just you could renew it. If you do renew it, I think that I would recommend that you make that renewal based on the representations that were made to you tonight. Doing it because the applicant has represented they will continually have TIPS training of all employees, that they will have security, private security at all times, that they will fully comply with building applications going forward, and that there will be no amplified music or concerts. So that your approval is really conditioned on them continuing to comply with that. What you're saying in essence is you make those representations to your application. So one is to approve it expressly contingent or in recognition of those representations they made. Then if any of those aren't carried through with, then the city could do exactly what Mr. Grant indicated. We could send them a cause notice that says, you know, the city council approved it based on these conditions. We have reason to believe you're no longer complying with those conditions. So you could deny, you could approve it based on those representations, or as Mr. Grant indicated, you could grant it, not indicate why you're doing it. We could set it for a show cause the next day, and then we could negotiate those conditions. That's common. My recommendation is that you either deny it or that you approve it, but make it clear from the record that you approved it based on the express representations of the applicant.
Can I ask one question that ties in with that question? If we denied it tonight, how long do they have to wait, or would they have to wait for a time period to reapply for a new license? And then they could come and say, look, we did all this stuff, but it'd be a new license.
And I have to go back and look. My recollection is that if you denied a liquor license, you've got to wait a year to get a new one. I didn't really look at that aspect of it. I think it's a year before they can apply. And once they've applied, it is a long process for a new application.
That's also my understanding. I think Mr. Krob's correct. I think it's a 12-month waiting period.
And then I just have a last couple questions so I can let other council members ask theirs as well. You expressed that you were willing to hire security staff. Will those security staff only be at the establishment only if you had like over on the weekends, or would they be during the weekdays throughout the entire time the business was in operation? And how many security staff would you intend on hiring?
Usually we got when we start, we got another company. We was working with other company. We got 3 companies already, and the police officer Luis Garcia, he knows because he was dealing with them, and then tried to get in a day license to work in the city of Evans. So usually we open now from Tuesday. We was open Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we have usually Thursday was really slow sometimes, and we got all the times 4 security guards. We went to Spain, and that was the reason. And Friday at least we got 6 or 7. Saturday we got 8, and Sunday again we got 4 or 5. And then either if we don't got no customers, because that was the reason, to don't have any kind of complaints, or we don't need to call the police to anything they see, they fix it before that happen. And then we got a security guard for the time during the week and the weekends too. We don't got in the morning, because in the morning usually the people just is slow and they just came and take food out, But we got a security guard all the days we open.
And one last question. This is for staff. So regarding other businesses in Evans or the surrounding areas that have a similar type of business, do any of them get a significant amount of calls for complaints as this particular applicant has had?
Mayor Pro Tem, so we don't have too many of these kinds of establishments. The other one that would be closest to would be Lilbits on 23rd. I reviewed their call history for the last 3 years. We've had no noise complaints that I could find in 3 years. We've probably had, I'm estimating 50 bar checks, and about 20% of those were requested by the staff for officers to come in. Handful of disturbances. As the attorney mentioned, they're liquor establishments, so we had a few fights and those kinds of things, but probably not on the frequency that we were experiencing with this establishment in the short time window, and certainly not the noise complaints that were disturbing the neighborhoods.
Right, great, thank you, Chief. That's all the questions I have for now, thanks.
Councilwoman Johnson, questions?
Most of my questions have been asked, but also Mayor Pro Tem asked some of the questions I had. Aside from that, I mean, I did write several questions, but I don't see anything that has not been answered at this moment. So, okay.
Councilwoman Mortensen.
So my question was regarding the learning curve. We heard a lot, we're learning, but it's been 14 months. And police officers, the chief, city staff, I'm sure, has tried to point these things out, tried to show, this is the code, this is what's being violated, things like that. How much more of a learning curve, or how much more learning time do we need? Do they have, or do you guys have a plan set in place with a time frame of, when we're gonna fully have this? Because I understand, there's a lot of codes, a lot of things to learn, I get that. But 14 months, especially when I'm reading this, and for example, we were told security's hired, but I'm looking at this, and even up until November 22nd, security was not contacting Evans PD, even though Evans PD has multiple times said we need to be contacted. How much longer time-wise are we looking at for this learning curve to start getting better or even out?
If it's all right, would you like me to answer that?
Sure, yes, sir.
And I don't mean any offense to my clients, but I think the answer is it's kind of like a kid when they get in trouble. The fact that you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, maybe you do it a couple of times, if there's no severe punishment. I think at this point they understand where using everything. All I can say is you all as a liquor board, you really have obviously their attention. They understand this and they know that there's no room for error or no room for additional mistakes. If you're the parent, you're standing there saying you're losing the car or you're grounded or you're whatever, and they know they've got no place else to go. So I think that you'll see the learning curve pick up very, very quickly, and they're not going to want to ever have more violations, and they're going to err on the side of caution and do what's right. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Questions, Councilwoman Mortensen?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Councilmember Neal.
Yes, when I got this packet on Friday and noticed this and read through some of it, I fortunately was able to get a hold of, talk to Jim on Monday and have him request some historical research if they had it available on the new plantation and what their violations were. And I believe he said the chief had or staff had come up with something on that for the last 3 years
Yes.
prior to their closing.
The information I received from Commander Reynes was that there were 3 police calls at that time, during that time. 2 and 3 years.
2 and 3 years. Okay, thank you.
And by packet of information, you're referring to the materials for the published hearing.
City, yeah, the city council packet. Because you know, that was the first I knew that this was on the agenda.
Do you have any other questions, Fred?
That's all.
Any other questions for our city staff or for the applicant? I don't have any questions. I think I have the knowledge I would need to make a decision here, so I'll open it up for discussion. Is there any discussion with the council?
I'm actually kind of on the fence of this, honestly. I know the applicant here is stating that they are willing to make a lot of changes and to make sure that they comply with all of the rules of the liquor license and everything, and try to make a successful business. I understand it's a sports bar and grill. You're going to expect live entertainment. You're going to expect noise. People are coming there to have a good time. You know, and I definitely am concerned about the noise complaints, especially with the apartment complex that's just directly to the south of that. You know, if you're a night shift worker or got to get up early in the morning, and you have a bar next to you that's playing loud music and having a band, it's kind of hard, and it would make your living conditions uncomfortable. With that being said, I am concerned with the amount of calls that were there in the last 6 months or so. That's really a concern. Is it growing pains? I'm sure it's very difficult to own a business. I don't own a business, so I can't speak if there's a lot of growing pains and a lot of things you need to learn about running a business after you open it up. But what really does bother me is the amount of calls that have been there, and I don't know if it's done purposely or if it's just, hey, I'm learning and, you know, just give me another chance. So I'm still kind of on the fence about it.
Other discussion?
I think for me, it's, you know, it is alarming, like everything that has been presented. And definitely everything that has occurred within the establishment, the noise levels, and all. But I also see that there's an attempt to try to improve things. I see that there's the steps that they're taking towards that. They are a new company, and not only that, they're a new company within a pandemic. You know, navigating, I think, as a business during that time is difficult, but not only that, it's just, you know, having to tread and navigate those, you know, the reaction of how people react during those times is also an interesting thing. But I think heading towards a maybe somehow a probationary like period with, you know, specific conditions as mentioned, I think I kind of lean that way because again, they are new. They're taking the steps towards trying to improve, and also the fact that they're not going to operate, you know, continuing moving forward as a concert live, you know, hall. That's kind of promising as well, and that would also mitigate the whole noise issue. So that's where I'm at as far as all that information. So.
Councilmember Neal, I saw your hand.
Go ahead, Tim.
This is a tough one for me too, because I don't want anybody to lose their job, be out of work, or anything like that. But at the same time, we also have to consider our other citizens, and we have to consider our police spending their time there. Our city staff is, you know, trying to help with permits, things like that. any business, I understand new, needing to learn, but everybody knows, well, part of it is you have to want to learn yourself. You do have to go out and find those codes, go out and find what you need to know for your business. So instead of just immediately building something right away, and this is the same for a home, an apartment, a building, whatever, you can't just start building things or doing things the way you want to do it and then say, well, I didn't know, or that nobody was clear enough explaining that to me, because some of this does fall on business owners to learn these things, and I understand it takes time 100%, but like I said, even in some neighborhoods with your house, you can't even change your house without an HOA permission, and that's before you get a city permit. So these things, to me, I really just feel that some of it does fall on the business owners, and they are responsible for, do I need a permit for this? And someone was commenting about the fire department and them saying, do we need a permit? Well, okay, good, you asked the fire department. Did you go to the city? Did you ask the city? Did you talk to the police department and say, hey, we're going to have this outdoor venue, make it a little loud. Can you let us know if there's an issue? But like I said, just the time the police have been there, and yes, I understand hiring security is great, but to see that security is hired, but they're still not 100% following what needs to be followed for the Evans PD, and it's hard for me because same thing, I don't want people to be out of work. I don't want them to not be able to run their business, but we've got to consider the citizens as a whole, and we've got to look at all of that. Are we tying up the police when they could be helping somewhere else? Are we tying up the other thing, for example, is, okay, we turned in the building permit, but it's been there since you guys said October, I think, or November.
November 16th.
Okay, so now we've had December and all of January. Where are we at with that? Why haven't we gone ahead and got those plans, especially if, the bar's shut down, so let's go get those plans and get that through so we can get that approved. There's just a lot of information that has hit us tonight, and the other thing, so are we supposed to let everybody make changes if they say they didn't know? Are we supposed to let every business do that? It's a very tough one for me, because like I said, yes, I want, people to have the opportunity, and I want the workers to have their jobs, but it requires the owners taking that responsibility as well. And I understand, you said it was understandably like a child learning and growing, but to me, 14 months, and then to see for when they started keeping track, almost 6 months, that it's still kind of the same, I don't know. I will just say it's very, very, very hard for me, because I have to look at it too for the citizens. I have to look at it for the police department. I have to look at it for building permit. It's just, we got to be fair to everybody. And that's my thing.
Thank you. Councilmember Neal.
I'm very glad I let you go first, Tammy. You're at the same point I was when they came before us in November of 19. With if memory serves, it was a transfer of the liquor license. And I was a little bit hesitant about it, but I thought, I'm going to give them a chance. Evans needs businesses, and we need to encourage business. And from the historical data of the new plantation, which was often thought of as a biker bar, to have 2 violations in 3 years compared to what they've had in 6 months is, pretty telling. And I'm going to vote no, I believe, on this.
Thank you, Fred. Mayor Pro Tem, you have something to add?
Just one last comment. So I know we're considering this. We've had other businesses that's come before this council that has had violations and numerous police calls. And we kind of, not in this type of situation we are with a liquor license, but we had the same exact thing come with a couple other businesses. Multiple calls, multiple police activity, lots of stuff where we had to make a decision on what we were going to do with those businesses. The city worked with the business, the police departments worked with that business, and they got it cleaned up. So if we're willing to allow that to happen with those type of businesses, why, in a sense, couldn't we do this with this business? I'm not saying that all businesses are perfect, and I'm not saying that they seem like they're willing to comply and willing to work with the city. If we can offer that olive branch to other businesses to help them get themselves cleaned up, we could also do the same for this business. That's how I'm kind of looking at it. Yeah.
And I understand. It's my turn now, Fred. I'll get to you in just a second. Okay. And I understand where you're coming from, and I'm on a different thought process here. And you're right. We have worked with other businesses. I'm just not sure working with this one is going to help. We put up one sign that says your outdoor patio isn't supposed to be here, and they took it down. We put up another sign. They took it down. With the calls, our officer stated that he had talked to them and said, "Hey guys, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do to get us to stop coming to this establishment." I think we have worked with them, to be quite honest. I am a small business owner, and I know how hard it is to run a business right now. And I know there are learning curves to opening a small business. I just think 14 months is a lot of a learning curve. Where I come down on this one is I look at it, did staff meet, did they show us that they have broken the liquor rule enforcement laws? And to me, they have. I think one of the questions was when you said, when you're watching a police video on a video thing, how can you tell how loud that is? Well, I think that question got answered to me when someone 4,000 feet away could hear it. As far as the building thing, when you said the fire department said it was okay, they might have, but the fire department isn't part of the city of Evans. Our building department is. And we had told you twice that it wasn't okay. So as much as I, respect you guys and respect small businesses and hope you guys could do it the right way, I am going to be voting no on extending it. Other discussion? Councilmember Neal?
Yes, I forgot to mention that I was when I first met Officer Gonzalez, I was extremely impressed with the way, and I've seen him operate a few times and interact with different people. And he has always been extremely conscientious about trying to be helpful and not, just point a finger and you're going to get a ticket for this kind of activity. So I, listened to his presentation, and I thought, boy, this is making him sound pretty stringent. But I know from personal experience with him in the past, watching him interact with people, that he really tries to present the community service type police department that they represent. And so I just wanted to bring that out. I think he's done his best to interact with them, and they just have been non-compliant.
Other council discussion?
It's a hard one.
It is very tough.
It's a hard one.
It's very tough. I feel for people. I really do.
There you have someone in the back.
Well, this isn't quite a public hearing, so I'm not sure. Can I ask who you are? Yes. Okay. I'll ask our city attorney what the procedure is for that. We're kind of to the point of a vote.
Well, I thought we already had the presentation in November.
Correct.
Yeah, me too.
That's my wife. Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that she wanted to testify, but.
Okay, so I guess what I would suggest is that you talk to her and see if there's anything that she's going to add to what's been presented. And if there is, then, it's up to the board to decide if they want to allow it in. Usually once the evidence has been closed, it's closed, so. I'm gonna talk to her and see.
Does anybody want to hear from another witness, or you guys have enough information?
I have enough information.
I have enough information.
I think we're okay. Thank you. There's no other discussion. I'd entertain a motion. I move to deny the liquor license application of El Tropicana Sports Bar and Grill.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to deny the liquor license.
Brenner?
Yes, ma'am.
I just recommend that you do a roll call vote.
Sure. You will do a roll call vote. Will the city clerk, please?
Mayor Rudy,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Nay.
Councilmember Johnson,
Nay.
Councilmember Neal,
Aye.
Councilmember Mortensen. Aye.
Notice 3-2 to deny the liquor license.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me? No, we're going to finish this and then we'll break. Next item on the agenda is consideration of award of bid 2020 crack sealing contract. We'll hear from staff. We'll give you a couple minutes to get staff on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This crack seal is the fundamental first step of our pavement management program. This is the process that you see where we are filling cracks to ideally preserve the street by preventing water damage. So I will ask our city engineer, Mark Oberschmidt, to give an overview of the recommended program for this year and our process for bidding and recommended contracts.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This is the first of 4 maintenance contracts that we're looking to extend from last year's contract in the amount of $150,000 for the crack sealing. The last year's bidder has agreed to negotiated prices for this year, and this year we're only doing crack sealing, so we're going to take care of the smaller cracks. Last year we spent about $25,000 of the $150,000 on mastic, which is for bigger cracks, and we found that that's not as effective, so we're going to be doing those areas with actual asphalt patching as we move forward. This contractor has performed well over the last 8 years with the city. His contract prices have obviously gone up every year with a little bit of inflation. This year we've agreed to a 6% inflation price. Rates over the last 2 years went up 6%. And also because we haven't increased the size of the contract, whereas the other contracts we've increased the size of the contracts. So as part of those negotiations, some of those prices, unit prices, will actually come down. In this case, we're doing the same dollar amount of work for this year. There was a question that came up about why we're doing some of the newer streets. Part of the reason for that is the asphalt, in its first couple of years, tends to ravel or pull away from the edges or the lip of the curb and gutter, and also around the concrete collars, because the asphalt is flexible; it's not rigid. So one of the ways we can prevent that or slow that down is to crack seal the edges or the lip of the gutter. So on those streets that we're doing that, our new street over here off of 31st Street and in the Ridge of Prairie View, we're just going down the lip of the gutter, and we're going to seal that. And in other parts, you can already see that. And if you go out in the parking lot, you can see where the asphalt's actually pulled away from the curb and gutter. And it's a natural tendency for asphalt to do that. And this sealing, or this crack sealing, will help prevent that. And we try to do that. Moving forward, we're going to try to do that on all new road projects within the first couple of years as a maintenance, preventative maintenance process. And like I said, the contractor's been working well with us for great for the last 8 years. He's already told us he would like to start next Monday, but I think Leon's going to put him off for another week, assuming we agree to move forward with the contract. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
One point, yes, Mayor, from a process standpoint that I'll just point out, this is a little different from what you've seen in the past years because last year you did approve a 3-year option for this process. So that's why we didn't have the full bidding process. This is going to save us a whole lot of time and get us going faster, given that the contractor has agreed to work within the parameters that council set last year with that approved contract.
And additionally, when the contractor finishes at the end of a given year, we review their efforts, and if we're not satisfied either in the communication or the end product, we'll say, hey, we're not going to renew your contract. We're going to bid it again next year. So it's not a
3-year contract.
Well, it's not a 3-year contract. It's a 1-year extension.
It's an option.
Well, okay.
Yes, sorry.
This is an extension of the contract then?
Oh
my God, I can talk.
Sorry.
But you check their work. They're doing a good job.
Yeah, Leon's very happy with them, and they do really good work.
Yeah.
That's the hardest 2 hours of my life. Don't ever let me do that again.
Other questions of staff on this side?
I just wanted to make one more comment. I know I made a request for you guys, because, when you looked at that map and you saw like a light purple and a dark purple and whatever, I mean, it was kind of, for me, not being very sight gifted, it was kind of hard to decide what priorities were, so I made a request from staff. And I do notice that it was in the contract, the actual contract, but they went back and the very last page says priority 1 is this, this, and that. So that was very helpful, and I appreciate the extra work on that.
Thank you. And then I think another question that has come up is, are we going to make it through? And Leon is hopeful that we can make it through all 13 priorities. And if there's anything left over, then there's another neighborhood which we'll go over there. And we're going to use, since this is a maintenance contract, we're going to use up all $150,000. So if we can do more with less, we will.
Other questions of staff or any comments? No other questions or comments? I'd entertain a motion.
I move to award the 2021 crack seal contract to Crasco LLC in the not to exceed amount of $150,000 and to authorize the mayor's signature on the contract.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to award the 2021 crack seal contract to Carrasco LLC in the amount not to exceed of $150,000 and to authorize the mayor's signature on the contract. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you. City manager report.
Go past 9, Mayor.
Okay.
Oh, I have a question on his report.
You can do that.
I had plenty of time to look at the report. and I just wanted to make one more, I guess, smart thing. The photos were from the last time. Yeah, so, and now that I got to look at the photos really close, I wanted to know if Kyle gave the cat the parking violation. If you see the photo, you'll see the cat strolling.
I'll have to get back to you on that,
All right.
Councilmember.
Let's get back to city council.
Nothing else, Jim?
Nothing else.
City attorney.
Thank you.
No, I still don't have a video, and I have no other comments.
But thank you for the ones you made.
Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address city council on any item? Anyone virtually? Next item, can we go into executive session, then take a break, or do we have to take a break, then go into executive session?
You should take a break and then go.
Okay. We are going to take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 9:50.
What are we doing? We're breaking?
Yeah, that was a 2.5 hour courtroom case.